America at the origin.
Me di cuenta que la obra de arte es una especie de intermediario. Un intermediario entre las culturas, entre las civilizaciones, entre los hombres, entre el pasado, el presente y también el futuro. Los africanos acostumbraban llamar a las piezas de arte africano ancestros. Ellos pensaban que eso servía para unir los hombres del pasado con los que vivían en un determinado momento histórico y con los que iban a venir en el futuro.
Oswaldo Vigas' art is a journey back and forth to the origin, a discourse on the primitive, and a continuous reflection on the syncretic and mestizo nature of Latin American identity. Understanding America, the conjunction of its races, languages, beliefs, feelings, and ideas, is one of the artist's main quests. Oswaldo Vigas' painting sailed freely between the figurative and the abstract, the rational and the impulsive. Mixing, fusing, and connecting some of the key concepts in his aesthetic exploration of the world. The Venezuelan artist is a demiurge, a modern shaman, a builder of a cosmogony in which the present and the future, yesterday and today, are part of a single flow of time.
No creo que el arte progrese. No creo que la pintura contemporánea sea mejor que la que hizo el hombre que vivió en las cuevas de Altamira. Ya querría yo ser ese hombre que vivió en las cuevas de Altamira y poder hacer esos bisontes que él pintó y tener esa energía que lo impulsó a llenar esas paredes de esas grutas con esas pinturas maravillosas.
Even as a child in Venezuela, Vigas was drawing his obsessions. And throughout his life, his fascination for the archaic, the foundational myths of pre-Hispanic cultures, and the transcendence of magical thinking were constantly in his work, a prolific and uninterrupted life's work that would position him as one of the most influential avant-garde artists in Latin America. Oswaldo Vigas was born in Valencia, Venezuela, in 1923, into a low-income family. His father was 80 years old at the time of his birth. So he was raised by his mother, a strong and strict woman. From an early age, Vigas showed his talent as a drawer. At school, he worked on stage and set designs. His poet friends asked him to illustrate for their literary works. His youth was surrounded by new dilemmas and challenges. Following his father's example, he trained as a physician, specializing in pediatrics.
Me pasaba las noches llorando porque nunca había puesto para tantos niños enfermos. Los niños se morían afuera. Si se estaban muriendo, déjalo y se podían salvar al admitirlo. Y después me acostaba a llorar, y eso todos los días. Entonces pensaba, si esto lo ejerzo yo todo el tiempo, no puedo vivir. No viviré mucho. Me voy a morir pronto. Todavía me recuerdo los niñitos que se me morían en los brazos.
Art, his passion from an early age, took him away from pain, but faced him with his own existence.
No creo tampoco que se pueda hacer un arte pensando que el hombre es feliz y que va a ser más feliz cada día. Creo que es al revés, que el hombre no es un ser feliz y que es precisamente porque no es feliz por lo que hace arte.
The artist's name grew, became popular, and drew the attention of Venezuela's cultural institutions. Although for many of his contemporaries, his art was misunderstood. It didn't fit. It did not resemble what purists described as true painting. Because Vigas's concerns were telluric, far from the traditional canons of beauty, his figures were misshapen and uneven. The geometry of his paintings was amorphous and imperfect.
Que no tenía nada que ver con la pintura bien hecha que se hacía en Venezuela, de buena ortografía. A mí me había dejado de importar la ortografía desde ese momento. Ya no me importaba desde hacía un buen momento. Yo había ya comprendido hacía varios años que lo importante en la pintura no era solamente lo bonito y lo estético, sino lo expresivo. A fuerza a veces de sacrificar la pulcritud del cuadro.
A journey deep into the heart of Venezuela allowed him to discover the vitality of petroglyphs and other samples of pre-Columbian art. That experience marked a before and after in his work. It was a mystical encounter, an ancestral call. The Museum of Natural Sciences in Caracas, where valuable archaeological collections come together, became his favorite school. The search for that expressiveness, that visual poetry, led Vigas to create one of his most recognized pictorial series, The Witches.
Y ahí de pronto descubrí que esas figuras que yo estaba haciendo tenían alguna relación con las figuras precolombinas. Y de pronto entonces eso me apasionó tanto que yo me fui a La Guajira a buscar los indios de Sinamaica y a hacer croquis de los tatuajes de las caras para incorporar esas cosas a las figuras que yo pintaba.
His participation in El Taller Libre de Arte de Caracas, a group of artists who began their informal meetings from 1948, revealed parallel searches and common feelings with other young Venezuelans. However, the feeling of being an outsider did not leave him, not even when he received the National Prize for Painting and a scholarship to study in France. His migratory experience allowed him to see his home continent with different eyes, from a healthy and constructive distance. Those were years of learning and reflection. In his work, Latin America took center stage. Pre-Columbian and African art was the raw material of his aesthetic reflection. Oswaldo Vigas's artistic career, constant and uninterrupted, allowed him to build a personal cosmogony in which the human, animal, vegetable, and mineral worlds share a common origin. The artist's task was to reintegrate these elements. In Paris, Vigas was part of a generation of artists who changed the paradigm of the Latin American imagery. Furthermore, alongside artists such as Jean Dubuffet, Max Ernst, René Magritte, Fernand Léger, and Zawuki, among many others, he annually participated in the Salon de Mai and shared the ideology of the School of Paris. It was a movement of rejection of academicism and submission to any form of dogmatism, which brought together the elite of avant-garde art in the post-war Parisian capital. During these years, Vigas was able to adapt and merge the artistic trends of the time with his own cultural influences, giving place to a unique and personal style. Elements of pre-Columbian and African art found a harmonious spot in geometric abstraction and abstract expressionism. This fusion of influences became an original and innovative aspect of the artist's work. Pablo Picasso was an inspiring companion with whom he exchanged views on the motivations of European modernism and its kinship with African or American rock art. During his stay in Paris, Vigas received the invitation to participate in one of the most original and avant-garde integrated arts projects in Latin America. The Central University of Venezuela, recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site, is one of the most important modern architectures in the world. A pioneering, exemplary, and innovative work of Latin American critical consciousness. In the words of its creator, Carlos Raúl Villanueva, The project represented a synthesis of the major arts in which the architectural design merges with the urban and natural, artistic and pedagogical element. Developed between 1940 and 1960, the project had the contribution of the most prestigious plastic artists of the time: Alexander Calder, Wilfredo Lam, Victor Vasarely, Jean Arp, and Fernand Léger were some of the painters and sculptors who participated in the construction of this monumental work that served as a model for other academic institutions in the continent. Oswaldo Vigas's contribution was among the most significant. Inspired by the foundations of universal constructivism developed by the Uruguayan artist Joaquín Torres Garcia, Vigas began an investigation where his own personal cosmogony gave birth to a series of projects that would culminate in the construction of 4 monumental murals located in the Rectorate Plaza of the university.
Y cuando llegó Carlos Raúl Villanueva a París, lo primero que me dijo es: yo lo que quiero es que me afeites tu figura, porque ellas son murales. Y eso fue lo que yo hice. Eliminé los aspectos barrocos que tenía mi pintura de la época para quedarme con formas más rotundas, más monumentales, que sirvieran para los murales de la ciudad universitaria.
News about Venezuela was rewarding. The dictatorship of Marcos Pérez Jiménez was overthrown in January 1958. Since the first years of the dictator's tyranny, Oswaldo Vigas had been part of a resistance group known as the Patriotic Board. The re-encounter of freedom is an incentive for the artist's creativity. But a few months later, he received a devastating blow. One of his most beloved brothers, Reinaldo, died after a long and painful convalescence. Desolation affected Vigas's work. Artistic concerns changed, and new aesthetic questions and approaches arose. Depression knocked at the door. Zen Buddhism became one of his most stimulating study subjects. In this period, Vigas's paintings took a radical turn. The informalist stage began. The work became a lyrical, intuitive, intimate, spiritual, and liberating search. In the informal era, it is when I was most interested in Buddhism, but more than Buddha himself, in the Zen. I started reading Suzuki to find concentration methods to avoid anxiety and anguish. Vigas began to develop a more abstract painting. I have never been rigorously abstract or rigorously figurative. What I have tried to be is rigorously Oswaldo Vigas. I have never stopped doing figurative paint. What happens is that I had not shown them as I am doing it now. I estimate that abstractionism or figurativism, they have the same spirit in me, and that is why they do not collide. It is because of that they can be shown jointly. This period of his work, reinforced by the loss of his brother, represented an absolute absence of certainties, both in terms of the material and the spiritual, a constant search for freedom and the essence of art. In 1964, Vigas decided to return to Venezuela, and he did it in the company of his wife, Janine Castes, with whom he moved to the city of Mérida. At this stage, Vigas became a prolific cultural figure. His initiatives as cultural director of the Andes University transformed Mérida into a dynamic city with libraries, cinemas, music festivals, and renowned artistic workshops. After the exploration of abstraction, the return to his homeland also prompted the re-encounter with figuration. Having incorporated the Parisian experience into his language, Vigas will develop some of his most emblematic and celebrated series. The reflections on syncretism found their ideal expression in a series of canvases on Maria Leonza, a mythical goddess from the western part of Venezuela, through which the artist penetrates the mysteries of femininity, the fertility of the earth, and the invisible connections between the language of the jungle, the plant world, and the human experience. In 1970, he established his atelier in the city of Caracas. In this space, he continued to explore his cosmogony through various mediums, including tapestry, sculpture, and ceramics. These art forms served as vehicles for the artist's ongoing quest to harmonize the constituent elements of the world. Vigas believed that when we dream, we return to our mother's womb, where our primary instincts reside. This idea is reflected most clearly in his childlike execution style that emerged in the early 1990s when the artist was almost 70 years old. By constructing figures that blur the boundaries between humans and animals, the artist simultaneously intensifies and denies the human presence, expressing the tension between our animal impulses and modern experiences. The life and work of Vigas is a contained storm that explodes, hatching in that creative act. This is perceived in his ideas, in his actions, and in his art. he manages to capture forms that transcend primitiveness and lead us from birth to death and then to rebirth, thus mutating into aesthetic prophecies.